So welcome to the breakout session on entrepreneurship. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to our great panelists. My name is Amalia Delicari, and I'm a Program and Public Affairs Officer at the Stavros Niarchos Foundation. We have a great group of panelists today, and I'm honored to be moderating this panel. To my left, Professor Bertsimas of MIT, Mareva Grabowski, founder of Endeavor Greece, Vasilis Papakonstantinou, co-founder and chairman of the MIT Enterprise Forum in Greece, and ambassador of the Netherlands to Greece, Jan Versteeg, who will represent Orange Grove. During our April conference in New York on youth unemployment, economist Jeffrey Sachs talked about the importance of exports in fueling the Greek economy, but also mentioned the certain degree of pessimism found among entrepreneurs in Greece. A recent World Economic Forum report illustrated that while Greece ranked second within Europe on availability of scientists and engineers, it has a weak business environment that lacks competitiveness and access to capital. Today, Professor Bertsimas from MIT will present a proposal for an entrepreneurial institute with the goal to inspire, educate, and facilitate entrepreneurship in Greece. After that, the panelists will engage in a discussion, and in the end, I will take some Q&A from the audience. Professor Bertsimas, the floor is all yours. Thank you.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Yes. Thank you. So this is a proposal about an entrepreneurship center that started with some of my colleagues, Amedeo Doni, George Stephanopoulos, Gregory Stephanopoulos, Michalis Triantafylou, and John Tsitsiklis. So 6 of us are professors at MIT. Okay. So the plan today is to talk about the motivation, the aspiration, and about the proposal, the vision and the mission, the envisioned structure, and the next steps. So before, let me start with motivation. So the first talks about a tale of 3 countries. So this is the GDP per capita for Singapore, Israel, and Greece. And you can see that while the beginnings are similar, in late years, the stories are very different. And you can see that what happened here, Greece moved downwards, whereas Israel and Singapore accelerated. Regarding Israel, so when we're thinking about other models that worked elsewhere, the Israeli story came to mind. Israel is a country of about 7 million, only 60 years old, and it's surrounded by enemies, in a constant state of war with its neighbors. No natural resources, yet it produces more startup companies than Japan, China, India, Korea, Canada, and the United Kingdom. Israel has attracted per person over twice as much venture capital investment as the United States, and 30 times more than Europe, 30 times. So I have been at MIT for 30 years, and I have experience in these 30 years the entrepreneurship spirit that exists there, outcomes of which are that about 26,000 currently active companies were founded by MIT alumni. MIT is not a gigantic university. It graduates about 1,200 undergraduates a year, and about of that same order of graduates. So it's not a giant of a university, yet the number of companies is quite impressive. These companies collectively employ about over 3 million people at the moment. It generates annual world sales about 2 trillion, and it produces the equivalent of the 11th largest economy in the world. So, and many of these I have seen personally. My personal experience in entrepreneurship is over the years I've been involved in various entrepreneurship activities in various areas, financial services, medical data mining, publishing, and so forth. Some of them are active, some of them have been sold. And what I have learned from this, that it's a great mechanism of generating wealth and employment, and the keys to success involve passion, good chemistry, strong ideas, understanding of the market, and most importantly, a strong system of support, leadership, and often luck. So what is the aspiration? The aspiration is to help Greece develop a path towards wealth generation and job creation via entrepreneurship, something I have personally experienced. And the proposal is to develop a new entrepreneurship institute to facilitate these objectives. The vision is that this institute, we envision, to become the premier institution in Greece that supports the formation and expansion of an entrepreneurship landscape and ecosystem that enables young Greek entrepreneurs to start up successful companies and create wealth for the Greek society and jobs, which is one of the major issues today. The mission is threefold, is to inspire the young generation of young Greek entrepreneurs at universities, research institutes, and the economy, to educate, train, and connect aspiring entrepreneurs by providing leveraged support for educational, research, and training programs that offer knowledge, technical, marketing, and financial skills, as well as human and institutional networking for the successful advancement of entrepreneurial initiatives. Finally, to facilitate and accelerate the successful development and the transition to market of promising entrepreneurial initiatives in selective areas of the Greek economy. In terms of actions, so one is, these are examples of what we are thinking, a Greek Entrepreneurship Week, in which we facilitate also networking as well inspiration aspects. In cooperation with world-class universities to establish and administer what might be considered an entrepreneurship competition. At MIT, we have what is called the 100K competition, in which teams of students participate in this competition with entrepreneurship ideas. They are being judged by panels of experts, and some of the most successful of these ideas eventually become companies, and some of these 26,000 companies I mentioned earlier have started from this, including some very, very successful ones, multi-billion-dollar companies. In addition, in cooperation with Greek and world-class universities, to support the program of educational offerings that inject an innovative and enterprising dimension to the Greek universities' core research and educational activities. I've noticed in the previous question that we had in the morning section that the idea of educational offerings and educating young people in this direction received positive votes from the audience. Actions for educational, research, and training programs. There are quite a few, in fact, incubators and accelerators around the country. Since I've been thinking about these activities, I've been educated about the presence of these incubators and accelerators. So support them more. Start training workshops, introductions to venture capitalists and angel investors, and to link to business networking environments. And also active mentoring, especially with young people. I have seen this over the years, actively mentoring young aspiring entrepreneurs to educate them about global marketing, fundraising, business advice, and also international expansion. Provide leveraged financial and advisory support. In my experience, you need good ideas to succeed, but you also need the funding at critical points in the entrepreneurship ventures. So part of the aspirations and objectives of the Institute is to provide some of that. And also try to orient the Institute in areas of the economy that have been selected to be the main focus. I'll tell you more in a second. Critical, in my view anyway, is to, in addition to the leverage support, advice is particularly relevant and important. The way we envision is that the Institute's investment is heavily leveraged by private investors. So in other words, the Institute doesn't provide the main support, but provides auxiliary support. For example, we anticipate that the support from the Institute not to be in the range of 10 to 30% and have funding from other sources. In addition, the Institute brings to bear a number of its other functions: education, training, mentoring, networking, and guidance of how to successfully create a business that works. What are the essential characteristics of the new institute? First, it's a non-profit organization. Second, that it leads to positive net income, that it's reinvested to the institute's activities. Because the institute participates in helping, partially in helping these new companies, hopefully positive revenue, positive net income is generated, it's reinvested, so that it can be a perpetual activity, not a once event. So in addition, we hope to achieve that this will be a lean organization with no more than about 8 to 10% of its annual expenditures allocated for administration and management. And finally, the Institute will operate primarily through partnerships with a variety of organizations and institutions already existing in Greece. In the last few months, I have been educated about the various activities that exist. And in fact, in my trip here, I'm hoping to understand even better, and also from a close proximity, about the major activities that exist today. Maybe you cannot see this very well, but the way we envision it is it will be a board of directors, a CEO, and then various vertical functions: education and training, incubators, accelerators, venture capital funding. There are various focus areas that we have been envisioning. I've presented this presentation in April in New York, and one of the feedback we have received is maybe it might be the right idea to consider areas that at least the people who are thinking about it, namely to focus it on technology, new business activities that are oriented into areas that we have some expertise. At the moment, we are thinking of encompassing everything in that we have been thinking about that is consistent with what we have been hearing from the Niarchos Foundation. We have been thinking about cultural tourism, agriculture, and food. These are things that are, these are two areas that have been at the moment being discussed in panels in parallel with ours, as well as product-oriented new businesses and information and service areas. So in terms of, I don't claim particular expertise either in cultural tourism or agriculture. In the area of product-oriented new businesses, things that we have been thinking that might be relevant for the Greek environment are medical devices, electronics and communications, specialty chemicals and materials for energy systems, safety and security, also generic pharmaceutical and biosimilars, green technology products, and so forth. In the area of information systems and business services, big data and associated services, digital media, games, for example, electronic travel and booking systems for cultural tourism, mobile services, business-to-business marketing, electronic marketplace forum for shipping companies, and so forth. In terms of the potential board members, would like to, in this institute, to encompass a lot of the talent, expertise, knowledge, and experience in Greek society. So we're thinking to include people from universities and research institutes, people from major entrepreneurship institutions in Greece, from major venture capital funds and group of angel investors, as well as from business and professional associations. In terms of next steps, trying to understand the landscape, and progress has been made since April, at least on our end. I personally have a better understanding of what exists. Of course, the understanding can improve much further. And what I have been quite impressed about is the number of these organizations that exist at the moment. to develop a business plan, to form to the Niarchos Foundation, and then hopefully get approval and start doing the actual work. I try to be brief. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Bertsimas. At this point, I would like to ask the rest of the panelists to comment on the proposed institute and also to let us know how it relates to the work that they are doing. You can start, Mareva.
I come from the Endeavor side. Endeavor is a non-profit organization, worldwide organization that promotes high-impact entrepreneurship in countries that are in real need. Was only for emerging markets up to 2 years ago when we started in Greece. We've been in Greece for the past 2 years, so we've had a pretty good experience of what it means to have such an organization. I think the proposal is very interesting. It's ambitious in its scope, but if correctly done, it could have a great impact and could be transformative in the ecosystem, the entrepreneurial ecosystem. I was very perplexed in thinking what could be done, because there's so much that has been done in the past 2 years, and there are so many organizations, so many incubators, accelerators, and I was thinking, how can you really, what do you really need? You need something that is unique by definition, that sits on top of all the existing structures. I mean, this to me is very important, given that it's done and it's developed by the Niarchos Foundation that has a credibility already. I think that the proposal as such has too many focus areas in terms of sectors and proposed activities. The scope, as described, might overlap with other initiatives like the one that the agriculture and the tourism that are taking place in other rooms right now. So that might be a bit an overlap. So I was thinking of three actually important things. The one, first of all, is the educational part. The educational is extremely important for me, is number one, but it could run parallel to whatever structure you have for the institute. So that, as a fact, is the number one thing. So I'll leave it. There needs to be a lot of work done around it and how you propose it, but I think that that's an important fact, and you have to have it. Now, I was also thinking about how the focus and how relevant it is to the MIT core expertise. What does MIT bring to the table? And we know that MIT focuses on the transfer of technology, and the most important thing that it does, it's technological innovation that it transfers into successful business ventures. So there you could have a very interesting proposal if you focus on that specific one. As I said, I would leave out the incubators and accelerators. They're already and the hubs. There are far too many. There are about 60 right now. There's an estimate of 60 of them. There's one used for every 4 or 5 startups. So I think it's better to leave them to diffuse in the whole area and sort of compete with each other. Then I would say that the board composition should be aligned to the overall scope of each incentive of the institute. So that also I would look a bit more into it. One of the things, though, that from my experience as Endeavor, that I didn't see too much, and I think thinking back on all this proposal, I saw missing is the public policy part. And the public policy is the one thing that really right now is missing in Greece. How does government promote entrepreneurship? What are the problems that are faced by the entrepreneurs? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't have the entrepreneurs and you don't have the companies, you can't really go anywhere. And as we saw from the study that we did, the most important thing for generating sustainable economic growth at this point is the startups. Okay, it's how really what does that mean in a sense, and where is the government role? Because there are a lot of initiatives that could be there, but without a government role, there's the whole structure, which is a 4 to 5 stages structure of a business, whether it's the startup, on how you ease of setting up a business, whether it's the growing and running, where you really need, where the bureaucracy takes place and how you ease bureaucracy, and the growing, the financial incentives that takes place, and then the exit strategy that takes place. And there, what are the public markets, whether you have an outsider come in and buy a stake, stock options. I mean, there is a lot to do. So I think, to me, this is one of the core areas, along with education, that you'd have to think about. Because as much as support you can provide to a startup, unless there is a serious government policy, we will not be able to make a difference and a desired impact. These are the main comments.
Thank you, Mareva. Okay.
Hi. First of all, I would like to thank the Stavros Niarchos Foundation for being the founding donor of the MIT Enterprise Forum Greece and for inviting me to join this panel. MIT Enterprise Forum Greece launched last September from a small group of MIT alums living in Greece, but focuses targets to all technology entrepreneurs. So in a sense, we are trying to address what Mareva just said. You leverage the skills and the background we have to support technology entrepreneurship. Our mission is very similar to the proposed institute. We want to inspire, educate, connect, and subsequently facilitate and accelerate technology entrepreneurship in Greece. But we started focusing on the first three, and we split our effort in two ways. The percentages are not perfect, but you can think of 80% focusing on entrepreneurs and 20% focusing on investors, because in order to have technology entrepreneurship, you have to have technology investors. And to most investors, at least in Greece and maybe Europe, the technology investment is a new asset class, and they have to understand what that means, how the game is played. So we're trying to do all this kind of stuff, and over the past few months, with the help of the global organization that spreads around the world, we have chapters in 30 countries and more than 40,000 members. We try to leverage all these network and connections. So we're really interested in this new initiative by the Stavros Niarchos Foundation and by Dimitris and his colleagues from MIT. We think that it would obviously, as Mareva said, give a bird's eye view of what's happening right now and help a little bit of the coordination effort. Over the past few months, we had so many events happening almost at the same time that nobody knew what is going to happen at the time that they were scheduling something on their own. And that will help both the supply and the demand, because sending thousands and thousands of invitations to all kinds of audience for similar events that they are having over a short period of time is tiring, and they lose focus. So the bird's eye view and the coordination aspect are very interesting, and will certainly help in all directions. The second most important aspect I see is the financial leveraging aspect. We have an inflow of venture capital recently, and that has helped a lot of the community, but still it's very low compared to what we would expect in order to realize the dream that everybody has in its mind. These to have an organization like the Stavros Niarchos Foundation with its credibility standing in front and putting down some hard money to attract more investors from Greece, where we know that herbing is very important, and everybody assumes that the guy in front of him has done the due diligence. That will be very, very important. And finally, I would say that the very important aspect of our effort, and I think the new initiative has to also take a look at that, is to use our international networks, as Mareva also is doing, to bring people from outside inside, to do two things. First of all, to support the education, because a lot of things are still missing. As we said, we need to learn a lot about the ropes of how the game is played, especially in technology entrepreneurship, where we have the extra problem that entrepreneurs are not in groups. You have all engineers trying to do something. You don't have engineers and maybe a guy from marketing or a guy from business. So we have to bring people inside to help us with education and training, but also we have to bring people from abroad to see what happens, what are the opportunities, and people that they trust our organizations, and they will come here because we ask them to do so. And then hopefully they will see things that they are very interesting. And so I guess this is my view.
Thank you very much. Ambassador?
Well, thank you very much, and also thanks to the Niarchos Foundation for doing this. I think this can be really an impactful initiative. I was also very impressed this morning by the presentation that was done by Endeavor about what the real challenges are, and I think that also preempts a lot of what we have to say here. I just want to explain a little bit why I'm probably invited here and why we're doing what we're doing. With the Dutch embassy, a lot of friends and the Dutch Greek business community, we started a co-working space with an entrepreneurship program, sort of an incubator/accelerator program. We started last year in September with 11 little companies. Now there's between 30 and 40 little companies. There's 70 people enrolled in the program, and I think there's really interesting things happening there. Why did we do that? Basically, also what was in the Endeavor presentation, youth unemployment and the brain drain are tremendous challenges if you look to the immediate future. There are people in Orange Grove that say, I'm basically the only person of my group of friends that's still here in Greece. All the others have moved away. And economic literature learns that often people only come back after their most productive years. So you have to counter that development. The other thing is that of course, these young people have something special that we old guys don't have. Let's face it. Me. I don't want to include anybody in that, but most important inventions are done by people under 30 years old. They have a creativity and energy, but also a lack of awareness of limitations and constraints that is very useful, that you need to have that force in your economic system. So we thought maybe we could help or help a little bit there, just a tiny little bit. There is an economic logic to this. There is, in my country, I think 60% of all the new jobs that are created at the moment are in small and medium-sized enterprises less than 5 years old. 60% of all new jobs. That's very relevant. Small, medium-sized enterprises less than 5 years old. They're not all typical startups, but there's a good chunk of that because there is a number of good entrepreneurship programs, etc., etc., etc. The stimuli are probably favorable there. If you look at the situation in Greece, I think one would be a bit naive to expect that we would have major, large investments giving many jobs to young people in the past in the coming couple of years. I mean, there might be a couple of good news stories, but the way to counter the current situation is probably not to wait for big investments. And then you have great opportunities because you have this great group of highly educated people with good ideas, and you have all kinds of conditions that can be pretty favorable. There's also still a couple of things to work on, but I really think that there are big opportunities there. And we thought, well, maybe we can be of use, because as an embassy you're supposed to be good at networking, and you could connect the dots and connect the different startup ecosystems, the world of the large corporates, which you need, and there's a couple of large corporates of Dutch origin that are active in Greece. You need them also for your ecosystem, etc., etc. Does it work? I think in a way it does. I mean, there's this 60 to 70 people that you really see developing at the moment. You see that there is a community that's forming itself. Not all of them will be successful, but also those that have been in a program like this for a year, they have learned a lot, and it's much better than not being active in that type of setting. So they get a lot of positive incentives. And the other thing why I think it is important is that the advocacy for this is still important. I hear what you're saying about that it's getting busy and that there's many events. I think that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. Seen from the inside, we see each other every week almost, but then it's busy. But there's still hundreds of thousands of people around here in Attica that don't consider the option of starting a business, that don't know what's going on here. So making more buzz, making this known to everybody, convincing parents that for their children, entrepreneurship is a viable option. It's not a fishy thing that you should avoid. It is a thing that you can do. I think it does make a difference. Also, getting a number of these messages across about entrepreneurship, moving towards a more risk-taking kind of behavior, and also essentially, I think, empowering the youth. The words were used this morning, but we in Europe really have an issue there. We tend to be overprotective to our youngsters. We don't treat them as adults. By the time people are 35 years old, we still say kid to him or her. You have to give these people real responsibilities and real possibilities. And then, of course, they will also have to grab them. Now, in relation to the Institute and what the outstanding challenges are, in my humble eyes, I've been in this only for about a year now, but pretty actively. I think one of the big challenges is to raise the numbers of participants in this. In order to get this going and to make this meaningful, you need a very broad base of people that start to participate in the program. So look at the demography of the Attica region. 5 million people more or less. There's about 1 million people in the relevant age group, 20 to 40. Half of them has higher education, I guess. According to official figures, 70% of that is jobless. 350,000 people. How many people do we have in all these beautiful incubators and accelerators at the moment? Not more than 200 to 300. Let's be very realistic about it. Now you could cater for hundreds of thousands or maybe tens of thousands, and we have 200 to 300 people that are enrolled in this sort of program at the moment. So there is a lot of ground to be won. And it is important to start with many, because next point, you need to really put people in this sort of development, because when you come from university, you're not taught to be an entrepreneur. You need to be with other people in the same situation. You have to learn a couple of essential practical skills that you don't learn in European universities. In US universities you might, but in our universities you don't. So I think these programs can be very useful. And then I come to the third point, third challenge, that is often quoted as the first challenge, and I think people that do that are wrong, and that's funding. People say it's all about funding. I don't believe that. If you talk to business angels and VCs, some of them are here, they often tell you there is not a lack of funding, there's a lack of fundable proposals. People that have gone through these stages, that have been selected in this process of, let's say, natural selection, and have learned the right skills, and then come to us with a proposal. There's a lack of numbers there, of fundable proposals. Now, is there no funding issue whatsoever? No, I don't think so. There are two funding issues. There's one, if you're starting to be successful and you want to make the big jump, and then unfortunately now still many people from Europe immediately move to Silicon Valley or New York to get the right funding. And on the other side, there's also a big funding challenge, I think, and that is, how do you enable people to take part in this very initial stage, in this stage that they are in an accelerator or an incubator or doing it on their own? It would be great if you can give people a little allowance in whatever form possible, in order that they don't have to care about, let's say, their daily bread and butter, and they can, with 500 to 1,000 euros a month, they're helped already a lot, and then they can focus fully on their project. And that is important, because you have to focus fully on what you're doing if you want to set up an enterprise. I wouldn't do that, perhaps not in the form of grants to people, but rather in the form of loans, because there's a better incentive in that for people to really make it work. And maybe you can, in some way, leverage those small loans. We have some experience with that in Holland. It's pretty successful. One of our banks does that together with a couple of other institutions to, let's say, decrease the risk for the banks. And it works really well. It incentivizes people, and it makes sure that they can really focus on what they're doing. Last point. Now that we talk about the loans and so on, what I said about that, sometimes we don't take young people seriously, and we don't give them really an adult treatment, that we say, hey, you're a grown-up, you can do this. There's another side to it. Because we don't have that habit, also what is a big challenge also for the programs that we're going to, or that some of us are running and that you want to stimulate. One of the big things that I think is important there is to give people a real, make them delivery sharks, to give them a real delivery mentality. Because I see many very promising young entrepreneurs. I think we get some of the best of them. They have a lot, but generally the weak point is this real focus on getting the things done and getting them done in time. So that is definitely one of the things that you can learn in this type of programs, and I think your institute could be a great help there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to build on Mareva Grabowski's comment about the policy change, and I would like to ask you how you feel that the institute could be involved in encouraging policy change.
First of all, I think that the issue of policies, because I felt it, and I felt that the attitude, the young entrepreneurs have attitude towards risk. They're worried to start something. So because there's no real policy in place, and I was thinking that the institute, given its credibility. Given the credibility that it has built these past few years, and especially with the cultural center, it has a credibility towards the government, and I think that the institute could form as an umbrella on top a structure that could promote public policy, that could push, that could lobby. Because I will tell you one thing, I was thinking about the Israel example. I mean, Israel is, I wish we were Israel, but you know, a lot of the funds came from defense-related R&D in Israel. And a lot of startup technology came, and there was a great push from the government. I mean, Israel has an unrivaled network behind it. And also Israel has a Jewish community that is pushing and investing in Israel like there's no tomorrow. I mean, we don't have that with the Greek diaspora. The only foundation that has a real credibility, and the only institution for me is the Niarchos Foundation that has really done something from abroad. Therefore, in the eyes of Greece and the Greek community and the government, which is a very important part, there is a credibility there. So I think that there are certain things that go along with the the taxation, with the bureaucracy, with the easing and starting up the business, in the financial incentives, because you have to have certain financial incentives for these startup entrepreneurs. And I agree, there is funding. There might be need for, there's more need in the seed financing. Okay, that's the seeding is the most important part where funding is needed. But I think if there is one institution that can do the public policy, which is the most important to me, that is the Niarchos Foundation.
Thank
I
you.
would propose considering two things. First of all, a few years back, with three foundations, Niarchos was one of them. We were discussing of replicating the Startup Chile experiment. We would like, I mean, it's very difficult for the government to do something like that, but this institute can do something like that and use the small amount allowance that will enable people to come and start businesses. And it would be nice if we try to attract people from abroad, because just trying to get Greeks work with Greeks has some limitations. The problems that, I mean, the privilege of being in Boston and rubbing shoulders with all the other peoples is taken away from here. So the Startup Chile created this opportunity because they attracted all kinds of people from everywhere around the world with no strings attached. And of course you have the risk of people getting money, but you don't go across the halfway across the world just to get that $40,000. So I think this would be a very important area to consider. And the other thing is, in order to create, coming back to your example of Israel, I mean, all these things happen, but one of the things that happen, I guess, is that a lot of companies, big American companies, created satellite research centers in Greece, in Israel. We would like to see, we would like to see that in Greece, and connections from all these organizations can bring these small groups in the beginning, but they will grow in the future. I would say that Mr. Makios will agree that Coralia and all the companies, grew up thanks to Atmel having set up shop in Patra. And I guess the Niarchos Foundation can also attest to the fact that the maritime industry was created like that. A lot of Greeks were coming, Greek ship owners were coming back in the 70s, and then they hired people locally, they lent ropes, and then they created, because it's a matter, stimulating entrepreneurship is not about, forcing people to tell them this is the future. You have to show them problems that they are tractable in their own domain and give them the imagination to take advantage of the environment and the resources. It's not like, you have to make everybody, or the 300,000 people that they are available without jobs to make them entrepreneurs, but you have to give them problems that they intrigue them and they use the resources. So these kind of two things, they will force the public policy change, to my opinion, I guess.
Thank you very much.
Well, yeah, but I don't have too much to add to this. I think it can be very attractive to try to not only create this wide group of people that have that experience and that mentality, that class of young entrepreneurs, which was also in the initial presentation this morning. It's also about establishing all kinds of connections, and that's where the institute can come in. That's also where governments have a role to play, and these are very important because distance is not important anymore. I mean, you can easily connect to startup ecosystems on the other side of the ocean or elsewhere in Europe. Because networks have become very important, especially for these small companies. A thing to stimulate, though, I think is still a culture of collaboration, because there is still a low level of trust, and you also feel that in the initial context with the young entrepreneurs. Some that come in, they ask who's going to guarantee that nobody's going to spy on me, because they see Orange Grove, our place, which is a big open space. That's over after a couple of months, because they see there's more benefits in the collaboration than drawbacks. But there is work to do there, and I think an Institute of Entrepreneurship can also give a couple of good incentives there.
Thank you very much. At this point, I would like to open the floor to Q&A from the audience. Thank you. The microphone here.
Niarchos from Coralia. I think it's time to see a tangible solution for a major problem of Greece in high technology. That's where I work with Coralia, I mean with the clusters. Last year, 3,000 Greek electrical engineers and software engineers went to Germany. This is a major issue. They go to Germany. Greece has put a lot of money to educate them. Some of them are brilliant. Some of them are very good. Some of them are not. But they are lost for Greece. And 3,000 a year means a lot for Greece. So my experience from Coralia is that the only way to expedite this process is to bring foreign companies, American, German companies, to Greece to create small design centers in the beginning, 10 people for one particular project. Greeks are very prone to to design. My students are very good. I have sent about 600 of them in the United States, and they are very promising. They have very promising careers. So I think the Institute should have one of the tasks for the bridging of major, small American or European companies to come here and take advantage of the brain power. This could expedite the process tremendously. The question is, what do you have as a suggestion for those 3,000 people?
Thank you. Yes, please.
I actually agree that the idea that you suggest that having international companies establish shop in Greece in a way and utilize the talent that exists here is something I actually, not only I like, I have some personal experience about it. A company I'm involved has a development environment here in Greece. It employs about 15 or so very talented Greek engineers. And I see other companies also to have, to start doing that. So I definitely agree that this is I'm not saying it's the only way, but it's definitely a way of doing it. To change this, the path of these 3,000 people every year leaving, it will take some effort. The hope is that the Institute will definitely de-accelerate that and hopefully reverse it. But I'm in agreement with the suggestion.
Well,
question here.
Hi, this is Leila Madihi from Education for Employment. Thank you for inviting us. My question is, Mr. the Ambassador, you said that we are not taught to be an intern. I agree. Me coming from Morocco, coming from a public school, we are just a receiver. Once we are a receiver, we are obliged to give back the information that they gave us at the end of the day for the final exam. You said that there are not lack of funding, but there are lack of fundable project. So my question: what are the criteria to have a fundable project? Thank you.
Well, on your first remark, I think that that is exactly the point why it makes sense to do things that follow university, and probably also, and that was also mentioned this morning, everybody's in the process of rethinking education, because knowledge is not scarce. Everybody can have access to all kinds of knowledge, but skills are the important thing. What makes something fundable or not, I think the main thing is that people look at the maturity of the team of people that do it, much more than the actual idea. And they look at whether, if you talk about professional investors, angels and venture capitalists, they look at whether an idea is really scalable. So that requires that a lot of thinking has been put in that sort of idea, and it has really been developed, and all aspects of it have been thought through. And often that's what is lacking, and that's why a professional investor that wants to make money out of this, which is okay, of course, says, well, no, that idea is not suitable for me. I'm not going to take that step. And that is what happens to 9 out of 10 of the proposals that go in that direction at this moment, I think, or even more.
Thank you. Yes, please identify yourselves with name and organization.
Hi, Sylvia Klimaki, Sky TV Greece. I have 2 questions, one for Professor Bertsimas. Do you also consider as a focus area shipping or maritime industry, not in terms of recreating the shipyards in Greece, but maybe finding ways of promoting technology and R&D? We've seen many Greek shipping companies lately investing in R&Ds and finding engineers that can actually advance their companies. But also, for instance, a couple of weeks ago, the Greek Ministry of Shipping signed an agreement with the Korean shipyards of actually sending parts to Korea from Greek companies that could actually help the Greek economy. So is shipping and maritime an industry that you consider putting as a focus area? And to Ms. Grabowski, I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name, I completely agree with your statement that the Stavros Foundation can actually push a lot on the public policy issue. It's a major issue here in Greece, and I think legal framework, a stable legal framework and a stable tax framework is what is missing from companies to grow and actually bring investors here in Greece. Do you consider that a synergy with all these institutions that we see here today under the umbrella of Stavros Niarchos could actually push towards this direction? Thank you very much.
So my answer to your question addressed to me is yes.
My point is that, you know, I believe in collaboration, and I believe that individualism doesn't get you anywhere. And the attitude that existed for many years in Greece was this individualistic attitude. Now, I think in times of war, in economic war, like you'd call it in the past years, people have started to get together. Institutions have started to get together. For us, I mean, it is important to have such a name on top, and that's why I mentioned that it's important to be on top. The Niarchos Foundation can be at the top of the structure, and underneath can have some heavy names. Endeavor, to me, is a heavy name because it's a solid organization that has proved itself since 1997 with people on the board that nobody can really touch upon, that they've done great philanthropic work and are there to make an impact. So if you combine, and there are many more institutions, I think, in Greece that have really proved to be successful. So I think that all these institutions together, along with the accelerators, the incubators, with the hubs, with embassies, well, I mean, you see more and more foreign ambassadors. I'm really impressed of what the Dutch embassy is doing, and the Canadian ambassador also is doing. The Australian ambassador is doing. I mean, you see more and more. So all together, I believe you can really have a great result.
Could I just add one thing about this role of governments? It may be interesting for you. A group of Greek entrepreneurs with some backing of the European Commission has now drawn up what is called the Greek Startup Manifesto. It addresses a number of these points. The tax climate, rules and regulations, and many of these issues. This Greek Startup Manifesto will be presented to the Greek government, to Minister Mitsotakis tomorrow noon at the first European Youth Entrepreneurship Conference that will take place tomorrow at Orange Grove, and the day after tomorrow in of Athens, which is a good initiative of the city of Athens. And anybody that's interested in it is, of course, most welcome to come to that event, but also to have a look at this Greek Startup Manifesto, because there's a number of very interesting points there that are exactly about the issues that you were raising.
Yes, please.
I'm Aristos Doxiadis of Open Fund, a VC investor in Greece. A question is to Professor Bertsimas. The sense that I have is that we have a very large number of initiatives, like many speakers said, that aim to, in various ways, to assist startups. But one weakness of most of those initiatives is that they tend to provide very generic assistance. When it comes down to very specific deficiencies in the ecosystem, they're not really very well equipped to deal with those. And because this is a new ecosystem, there are a lot of very specific small gaps that add up to obstacles to growing companies. I'll give two examples. 2 years ago, everybody said that we lack startup entrepreneurs, we need to stimulate them, and one of the ways in which they were stimulated is to provide seed funding. This has happened. Now, the main bottleneck of the ecosystem is not more entrepreneurs, but more employees for those entrepreneurs, developers who are able to produce products very quickly once they get into a small startup, because a small startup cannot afford training a developer for very long. They want people who are battle ready as soon as they get employed. This is the bottleneck. It was not there 2 years ago, it's there now. Another example of a small gap that suddenly comes up is, as a VC, I have to perform due diligence to the various projects that come to me. I lack the knowledge of specific areas, whereas I'm sure that somebody within the network of knowledgeable Greeks, diaspora Greeks, etc., could very quickly answer some of my questions if I could find the particular expert. Okay. These are two examples where it's very difficult to plan from the top down the type of service you will be providing. But it would come from the bottom up. The questions or the gaps would be identified from people on the ground, like me or like an entrepreneur. And then my question will be, which door do I knock in order to have this need met? So have you considered having a mechanism whereby you provide the services or you design your offerings through a bottom-up process?
So, regarding your second example, expertise, so I have, over the years I've been in the United States, I had many discussions with a network of Greek scientists and Greek entrepreneurs who are, collectively, obviously very worried about the path of the country. And many of us would be very happy to contribute in expertise. Let's say, for instance, there is a biotech company being formed, and there are specific technical questions where advice from experts could help. Well, we have a network of scientists, at least in the United States, where I live, where often they can help. And in fact, many, as I start talking about this, many of my friends and colleagues, meaning hundreds of people, have volunteered some of the time to help in that. Now, examples like that now we need employees with certain skills and so forth. I mean, this is harder for us to, but clearly the new institute should be adaptive to adjust. So therefore, the answer is, of course, we'll be very open to, from a bottom-up approach. Absolutely, that would be the right thing to do.
Thank you. At this point, we will take a break for lunch, and we will reconvene at 2:30. Thank you very much for coming.